This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
And welcome back to another episode of the Hockeytown West podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Travis.
We are back after a little holiday break here. We hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and got some cool hockey-related gifts or got everything you wanted and just enjoyed the break. I know we both enjoyed the break with our family, and it was nice to kind of peel ourselves away, even though I feel like hockey was on top of Travis's brain this entire break based off of his messages towards me. But man, how was your break? How was Christmas for you?
Oh, it was good. Obviously, anytime you get to see family is great. Christmas is a fun time of the year. I still haven't had Christmas with my dad yet. That's next weekend. So still the holiday season for me, even next week.
Kind of the way it goes sometimes here, man. The holiday, it's never just the holiday itself. It carries on for about a good week, sometimes 2, maybe 3. But it is good to relax with family. It was good to disconnect for a few days. I know personally I needed it, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Made some really good food yesterday, too. That smoked prime rib was phenomenal. I'd never made one of those, and holy smokes, I nailed it on the first try. So that was good. The family went home happy and fed, and everybody had a good time. And of course, some drinks were enjoyed as well, too. So I'm a little sluggish today, but we're ready to roll. And holy crap, we thought with a post-holiday episode, it'd be kind of chill. You know, the Griffs are off, the Wings are off, nothing crazy would happen. And then the Red Wings decided to drop a bombshell on us all the day after Christmas here with the firing of Derek Lalonde and Bob Bugner. Ugh, I'm going to screw up his name the rest of this episode, I promise. And you know, that I think kind of shocked us all this morning. I know it's something that a lot of people were begging for. A lot of people saw it coming, but seeing it come today was a shock.
Yeah, I think like my initial reaction was like, I don't know if a coaching change is going to fix this team's problems, but we'll find out. Really sad for Derek, like gets an opportunity. I mean, look, he really wasn't like that bad at all. Like, this year, yeah, it's been a struggle. But if you look at his body of work as a whole, like, I could see him get another opportunity down the road.
Yeah, I could see him getting picked up somewhere as an assistant coach pretty quick, honestly. Let's be real. I mean, we think back to his time in Toledo. Toledo wouldn't be where they are now without Derek Lalonde. Let's start there, right? Like, he did so much for Toledo in his time there. And you look at just the organization up and down and you go, wow, the coaching staff was tight between all three teams. They've all worked with each other. Pat Mickish, Dan Watson, and Derek Lalonde. They've all worked with each other for quite a long time. And it was like, that was my first thought is, what's this going to do on the relationship side when it comes to, you know, working with the teams across the board? And the organization's solid. I'm sure they're going to figure that out and they'll all be tight and it's not going to create any issues, but at the same time, you're like, dang, like that was a really tight group of guys there.
I mean, the messages are probably the same. Look, they've been through, let's see, Scotty Bowman was there. Dave Lewis was the coach for a couple of years. Mike Babcock's been the coach. Jeff Blashill, Derek Lalonde. So like 5 or 6 coaches since they've been affiliated with Toledo, like at the ECHL level. So, I mean, like, I don't think organizationally you're going to see a huge difference. Yeah, I mean, the closeness of the 3 head coaches having all like a very close relationship is going to be different now. But as a whole, I think managerially, I think it's going to be pretty well the status quo and kind of just the same. Like, the process doesn't change. I think you're still going to see like guys that are, you know, young players continuing to maybe learn the pro game here before they graduate to GR. If they're a later round draft pick or a mid-round draft pick, that's generally your start. But I don't think a whole lot's going to change personally.
Yeah, I don't see, at least this season, I don't see a lot changing. We'll see what happens over the next couple of years here. But it kind of like, in the back of my mind, it kind of sucks because we don't see mid-season firings with the Detroit Red Wings very often. I think this is only the second or maybe third time in franchise history this has happened. Second time.
It's only the second time since the Illiches took over. And I think the first one was so like kind of unknown and happened so long ago that people forget about it.
Yeah, it's very rare for them to make this move here, and I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to watch it. And then you got a guy like Todd McClellan coming in, who we're all familiar with. He was a Red Wings assistant coach back in the day. He's made his way around the NHL, adding another assistant coach in Trent Yarney as well. I'm gonna butcher that for the rest of the season too. Sorry, Trent. But you have these two guys here. What do you anticipate seeing from Todd and Trent right off the bat here?
I mean, you're hoping for that coach's bump that you see a lot of teams get when they get new coaches. I really don't know if a coaching change solves their issues. Like I talked to my dad. I'm like, look, they're implementing kids slowly. They're kind of in a tweener year to begin with. I think the reason this happened is just how stale they'd played. Like if they were losing games, but they were competitive in a lot of these games, to where like it felt like, okay, they're gonna lose 3-2, and shots are gonna be like 30-30, but not like get outshot 40-15. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I said at the beginning of the year, shots don't matter if you win the game, but at the same time, when you're constantly getting outplayed, I think that's where the problem lies, and maybe a change in voice can kind of get them to play a little bit more competitive is probably what they're looking for.
Yeah, I would say so. I think the one thing with all the young guys that we do have that'll be coming up the ranks here over the next couple of seasons, the one positive with Todd McClellan is he is a great development coach. He is great with younger players. He's great getting the best out of these young players. So I think that's a huge positive. Do I think he was the first choice that they should have made on this list of available coaches? No, but he's not the worst choice, right? And he's someone familiar with the organization, and he does get good results until the playoffs, at least. You look at his playoff record. I think he's made it to the third round as a head coach twice or three times. A lot of first round exits, a lot of second round exits. And I guess getting us back there would be an achievement in itself, and I think that's what we all want. But his ability to develop younger players, I think, is going to be what helps him out a lot with the current Red Wings situation. And I wonder if that means we'll start seeing some younger guys get their opportunities maybe a little earlier than we thought they would.
I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. Like you sit here over Christmas break and you just think about my mind doesn't really get away from hockey. Like,
no, it doesn't.
It's kind of a sickness. My wife probably is like, "Can you stop?" But it's just a reality that it's not going to happen. Like
he's
right
not
now,
joking. He's texting me roster breakdowns like what he would like to see on Christmas.
Like I have the World Juniors on my iPad right now too. So that's just kind of what this is all about for me. But I don't know. Like the one thing that I kept coming back to is they're not fast. They don't have a whole lot of speed, and youth can provide speed. Like you see some of the good teams in the NHL. Like look at Colorado. When they're a really good team, they're just swarming you. Like they're all over you. I mean, the Oilers, they're a little older, but they can move. Like you've seen guys that have gone they get the fastest player in the world with Connor McDavid. Like it took them years to find guys that could play with him just because he was so fast and just be the skill level. They got a lot of guys that are in their late 20s to early 30s, and in some cases mid 30s. But it's just sometimes you got to start getting kids into the lineup. Like this league's getting younger, and when you have an older roster, that's part of hockey. Like it's part of any sport, really. Father time catches up with everybody, but at the same time, can a little bit of youth help this team? Well, in foot speed, I would say absolutely. And there's a couple guys, if they were called up and played strategically, skill-wise, I think it would really help them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You've sent me a few breakdowns of that. We don't need to dive too far into those, but I definitely could see, yeah, right. I definitely could see some moves and some changes in that realm. But at the same time, you hate it for Derek because I think the world of him. I think he was a great coach. I think he's a great person, but at the same time, you understand the business decision that has to be made. I'd love to see him find his way back in as an assistant coach within this organization somehow, but I don't think that'll happen. That would just be a dream, but there's no way with the way this has gone down. And I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I'm still fully processing it. I didn't understand it. I don't think I'll understand it for a couple weeks still. I just don't know if this was the right time. I think they could have waited out the season, honestly. I know the fans would have been pissed, but at the same time, are we letting the fans make the business decisions, or are we letting the organization make the decisions? And I did even see rumblings before the Christmas break that they were talking about making this choice, and what ownership was thinking no, but maybe not right now because the cost. I don't know. I don't know if that was a rumor or what, but at the same time, I don't think this was the right time for it. And like you said, I don't think a coaching change is going to change too much in this unless they just start playing more of the kids.
Well, sometimes guys become available that you just got to go get, like Jim Montgomery. And I get that Todd McClellan was available this whole time. But there comes a point when you're like, okay, we need a change. Maybe this is a voice that there's some familiarity. Like, if you think that he can make that much of an impact, sure, try it. I seen it was a multi-year deal. Does that mean 2-3 years? Does that mean the end of this year and all of next year? I mean, like, I'm going to throw a theory out there. Like, call me crazy. If it's the end of this year and all of next year, is this a stopgap to get Waddy to the NHL?
I was thinking that myself because that's originally where I was going with the thought of like, yeah, it sucks to make this decision now because honestly, you could have gone into next season and promoted Waddy at this point. Honestly, I know a lot of people will think, well, what's he done? He hasn't won a championship in the pros or anything like that, but the coach is one of the best coaches in pro hockey at this point. And you look at, with the path that Sebastian Coase has taken, he's been his coach the entire time. And you're like, well, if Coase is getting called up next season, maybe Waddy goes with him. And who knows? They bring Lashoff with him to get a penalty kill that's actually solid. And, we have a great staff here, but they made the decision. And as it stands right now, Waddy will be here for a while in Grand Rapids, we hope, and hope he doesn't get that offer anytime soon. We like him here. We want to keep him here. I'd like to see them win a championship or two with him, and I think he's the coach to do it here in Grand Rapids. Not saying that they couldn't promote one of the guys behind him to make that a possibility either, but at the same time, we want to keep Waddy in Grand Rapids with these kids as long as possible because, like I said, Todd McClellan's a great developmental coach. So is Dan Watson, easily one of the best out there, and doing a great job here in Grand Rapids with these kids, even though they're in a little bit of a slide right now. But at the same time, just a fantastic coach, true players coach, and the room loves him down here. So, yeah, I don't want him to go anywhere.
No, I think it's just more of like something that like you see it and you're like, well, maybe. You try to like almost wish things into existence or overanalyze things into existence, but just something that I was like, maybe, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the Wings fans would love Waddy up there. I mean, they didn't like Lalonde's answers sometimes post-game, even after a bad loss. And, speaking from a person who speaks to Dan Watson almost after every home game here, and especially after one they get pumped 6-1 on last Friday, and his answers were fantastic. He hated the game. He was brutal about it, and that's the way he coaches. That's the way he is, and I love his personality, and the players love to play for him. And that's a guy you want to see stick around in the organization for as long as possible because he's doing good things and obviously did great things in Toledo as well.
I don't know, like, to tie it back to Detroit. I don't know because we're not in the room. We're not up there. We don't know anything, but
no.
Like, I love Derek, but like I feel like he wouldn't come off as a guy that would like just tell you like I don't want to say it because it's like kind of inappropriate to say, but like he'd give you like I'm just gonna say it, you can edit this out, like he'd give you a good motherfucking like it's just a harsh reality of the situation. Like you're gonna get an ass chewing. I feel like Todd McClellan could like be the guy like you're gonna get an ass chewing if you're not playing to standard.
Yeah, and his standards are high, like especially when it comes to keeping the puck, keeping puck possession and keeping it out of your zone. His standards are very high on that. So what he's going to do with this team,
I don't think we're going to see a lot of dump and chase.
Dude, if he comes in and changes that immediately, then I'm very happy with the decision and we'll move on there, But I don't know. It's just, again, you hate it for the guy, but you understand it for the organization, and you hope Todd and Trent and all these guys can get something going here. And
let's 2019 Blues it and just 20 to the finals. Not going to happen, but
crazier things have happened, but it's probably not going to happen with this team. But I think at this point, obviously, it kind of tells the team outside of your core guys, right? You have this young core and like Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, and Mo Sider. It kind of tells them, everyone else, like they'll make a change if they need to. Like they will make a change, and I don't know what that'll look like, but I think it'll wake up quite a few guys.
I think the next thing, like, okay, you've made the coaching change. If nothing gets better, when do you start sitting veterans, waiving veterans? Like, again, that goes back to calling up kids, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if you're not producing, what good are you? Like, there comes a point when it's like, all right, nut up or shut up, and if you're not doing it, I'm not afraid to sit you. Like, listen, there's about a handful of guys I can think of right now that I would have benched at some point in this season. Like, and you're talking guys that have played 15 years.
Like, I mean, let's be real. We've said it before. Patrick Kane should have been scratched by now, at least for one game.
Maybe to get him going, I wouldn't see why not. Like,
yeah.
I would.
I mean, you saw Berkey get scratched the other night and come out and score a goal in the next game.
I would have sat Sherratt at some point. I would keep Gustafsson off the ice at all costs personally, but that's just myself. Again, there's so many avenues you could go to, but like, again, this is where we're fans and we know absolutely nothing.
Exactly. 100%. We know nothing, and we'll continue to know nothing, at least at that level. We have a pretty good idea what's going on at the AHL level and the ECHL level, and that's what we're here to talk about most of the time. But when Detroit breaks news like this, he kind of has to take over the podcast for a little bit here and talk Red Wings, which normally we don't do a ton, but it feels like the past couple months, it's kind of dominated conversation here at the beginning of each episode. So we will move on from that. And again, just we hope that the changes bring what the fans want. We hope to see some results, but we won't know until we see hockey played again, which the Red Wings don't play again until I believe tomorrow, Friday. Not 100% sure on their schedule. I can't even keep my own schedule on track right now, but I know the Griffins play on Saturday. So anyways, moving on from that, a couple other pieces of news. One that dropped right before we started recording. Shout out to the Grand Rapids Griffins for not podcast cursing us here and dropping it mid-recording or after. But Hunter Johannes has been assigned to the Toledo Walleye. And this is one that I know Travis is super excited about because he loves the player and loves what he can bring. And for me personally, I mean, Hunter has not been able to deliver what we expected him to deliver. We saw him in training camp and preseason showing up, playing really well. We saw him play at the end of the season in Grand Rapids last year. And, he wasn't scoring goals or doing anything crazy, but he was making great plays. And he really just hadn't found his game this season in Grand Rapids at all. In and out of the lineup constantly. Super frustrated with his own performance. You can tell when the missed opportunity would happen on the ice, he's slamming his stick or whatever. He's pissed. And he gets sent down. And as we know within this organization, no one at the minor league level takes a send down as like a negative thing. They always take it as a positive, and there's always a good group of guys around him to get him and keep him positive. Like seeing this already posted, we know Keen's probably has already texted Hunter to get him all set up when he gets down to Toledo and get him in with the guys. Like that's just kind of how that group operates down there. But what Toledo is getting is a guy who can play an extremely gritty game and has an offensive upside if he can find his game. But Toledo fans, this is kind of the player that embodies Toledo hockey in a sense, honestly. And he's going to come down there and hopefully find his game. But I know from your perspective, Trav, you're super excited about this.
He's one of my favorite players from the Griffins. So, yeah. Listen, his play style is literally old school, like Storm days, physical, tough, big body. The only thing that could have made this better is if they played Fort Wayne tomorrow, but they don't. No, he's like you said, you've kind of hit all the points. He's big, he's physical, he can skate. I think the biggest thing with him is just like he got hurt and just hasn't gone his way since he came back. So I think I think we even talked about it months ago. Like, who's the first guy to send down? And I was like, just give Hunter a few games down here, see what happens. Like, maybe he goes down here, lights it up, and he's right back up in a week. Like, and now he's here. So,
you're just hoping they give him 5 games.
give me 5 games, and then call him up, send a Seager for 3 games, so he gets his 5 in. Dude, I'd love to see the three of them on a line somewhere. I don't care which team it's with. Um, but as a whole, I mean, like, Toledo's going to love this guy. I really think that, like, they talk about wanting to get bigger this year. They've had Bannell down here. We had Seeger for 2 games, albeit not very much. They have Chaz. Hunter and Chaz probably be best friends by the end of the week.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And for those listening wondering why we were talking about 5 games that might not know, 5 games in the regular season makes them playoff eligible down in Toledo. So if he gets 5 games in and he's not on the playoff roster here in Grand Rapids, or he's just sitting out, he can be playing in the playoffs in Toledo as well, which having a guy like that on the ice can be a big difference maker in the playoffs, someone that plays that physical, but also, again, if he finds that offensive upside he has down there, he's got a wicked shot. He's great at passing the puck. He's really smart with the puck. He just hasn't found his time and space here in Grand Rapids this season, which is weird because he kind of had that on lock when it was preseason and training camp. Like, he was one of the more impressive players at the Red Wings training camp this year, which maybe that was just echoing a bad roster that he was up against. But at the same time, like, he's got the tools. He just needs to find them again. And we love when we see guys get these opportunities to go down to Toledo and find it, because there's really no other organization in the ECHL I'd rather a guy get sent down to and have the opportunity to find his game, because they're going to welcome him with open arms and they're going to put him in the best position possible to find his game. I'm assuming he'll probably slot in second and third line right away.
I was just about to ask you this. Where do you think he slots in? Because that second line's been playing so well. Like,
it has. So probably third line.
It's almost
probably
tough
third
to break
line.
him up. But when they send Bannell down, he always plays with them too, with Louis and Craig.
Well, how do you not with a guy like Bannell whose motor literally just doesn't stop? Like, he's ridiculously talented.
I'm sitting here thinking about it, and it's like, what interests me more, and I'll say this, what interests me more is, and you got to remember, they got Bliss back from Chicago, and Keenan's healthy.
Yeah.
So, like, they're pretty well full roster again. Like, do you go, I would have to imagine they're going to go 12-6 tomorrow, just because they have the forwards to do it now. Obviously, the top line will be the Hansons. The second line.
Who's your third line left winger right now?
The last weekend it was Pilon, but we didn't have Bliss. We had Keenan playing on the first line. So, like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is where I don't really know. Like,
it's giving Pat's just got options right now. And we love options, especially with how crazy the ECHL schedule gets. You know, they play more 3-3s there than any other league. So
I'd really love to see Hunter play with Sam. Like,
I like that.
Just two big bodies opens up the ice for Louis a little bit. Or I don't think I don't know. There's I have no idea.
Well, you got to remember, too, since last time we had talked about the Walleye, because with our break, the Walleye episode really didn't happen. You know, yes, they got Trenton Bliss back from Chicago, and he was placed on reserve immediately. And then Hawk went on a 3-day reserve as well. I don't know if that's a time frame that's frozen during the holiday break or not. So that also could play into this factor a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not
that
sure.
was all announced on the 23rd, which I believe at that point the break had started for them.
I think that might be a freeze, like, to where you can't make trades, is mainly what that is. I don't think it's like the NHL, or like how the NHL has the trade freeze. I think it might be something similar to that. Like, in theory, you have Hawkins back, Bliss activated. Again, this is tough. Like,
Yeah.
I know it's not a Walleye episode, and here we are talking about them, but it impacts them so much.
It does, because it's huge for them. And again, like we talked about before too, like, who are we going to send down when we're talking about these guys? Like, Bantles played well in Grand Rapids. Seekers played well in Grand Rapids. Doucette is not going back to Toledo, I think, at all this season, whether he's playing in the Griffins lineup or not. I don't see him going back down. When he's in the lineup, he is doing the right things to stay in the lineup, but gets rotated in and out. That's a discussion for another day. But at the same time, the Griffins are stacked on the left side right now, honestly. They have 6 guys that can play left wing, and do it well without Hunter. Like that's, you got it. They made the right choice to send a guy down to find his game. That at the end of the day, that's what this is.
I'm still trying to figure this out, and obviously you go Hawk, Bliss, Spezia, Bliss, Hawkins.
Yep.
If it were me, just for the sake of fun, I would love Louis with Craggs and Hunter.
Okay.
And then Keenan with Dornbach and Cruz. And Jesus God.
Pat's got decisions to make, man.
I'm trying to think like who else is left. Then it would be Messina, Ness, and most likely Pilon or Nodler would be my guess. Those would probably be your 12 forwards in any order. Like, obviously the first line's not getting adjusted.
Yeah, and I mean,
and that's contingent on if they activate all these guys tomorrow. Like, you don't
correct, obviously. Know. And either way you draw it up, Toledo's going to not just have 1 and 2 lines that can roll. And I mean, roll heavy. They potentially can roll 3 lines that have at least one heavy body out there that can disrupt play and have an offensive upside. That's huge at that level.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Tomorrow just got a lot funner, a lot more fun.
Funner, more fun, whatever way you want to put it. I just hope he finds his game. I wish nothing but the best. I love the guy. He's a great dude, a great personality to be around. And
I hope he scores tomorrow and I get to talk to him afterwards.
Heck yeah, dude. Like that's exactly what you want when you're doing media like this. So yeah, it's fun. But enough about Hunter there. Like we said, this episode's kind of all over the place. We're flying by the seat of our pants here. A fun post-holiday episode because obviously there's not really any hockey being played that we cover besides the World Juniors, which we are going to talk about World Juniors, even though it's only day 1 of World Juniors, because obviously there's a standout that we have to talk about with World Juniors. We are going to recap some Griffins hockey too, though, as well. We know there was a couple of games that we never recapped on an episode with you guys because of the break and scheduling and all that. So we're going to send it to an ad break now. When we come back, we'll recap Griffins hockey. I want to talk about what we can expect for Griffins hockey for the rest of the season since we're kind of at that halfway point. And then we'll, of course, talk World Juniors too. But first, quick ad break. The 24-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
There's nothing like the excitement of watching NHL hockey live and in person. The sounds of the puck hitting the boards, the players slamming guys up against the glass. There's truly nothing like it, and it's never been easier to save money on your tickets than now with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And welcome back, everybody. All right, let's dive in. Like I said, we're going to recap a couple of these games. We're not going to go too in-depth with them. This is kind of old news. And when we say old news, this was, 6 days ago, one of these games we're talking about. So everybody that follows the team closely kind of knows how these games went. But just a quick breakdown. You had Milwaukee come to Grand Rapids on Friday. And this was the Griffins' first game back after quite a long road trip that spanned through Colorado and Texas. 5 games in 8 days. In 3 different states and 3 different time zones, and you wondered what the Griffins were going to look like in this game, and the only word I could use to describe them is exhausted. Like, honestly, with that schedule, they're going to be tired, but holy smokes, on ice, did they just look gassed. And Milwaukee was fresh. They were in Grand Rapids the day before the game even, actually. I think they got here Wednesday night. They had all Thursday in GR to practice and relax. They had all Friday to practice and relax before the game. Griffins didn't get back in Grand Rapids until, I believe, Thursday afternoon to, I believe, skate and then go to sleep and hit the ice the next morning. So they were gassed by the point that they dropped the puck in this game, and Milwaukee took full advantage of it. They beat the Griffins 6-1 in this game. The only scorer for the Griffins in this one was Joe Snively at the 13-minute mark of the third period there on a power play goal. That was kind of just a garbage time goal, but great for his stats there. It was 10th of the season. Wallander and Shine had the assist on that one. And, I spoke with only Dan Watson after the game on this one, more out of respect because, one, I was the only media member in attendance for this game, unfortunately. Two, the guys were gassed. I wasn't going to put them through anything else post-game. I wanted them to get out of there and go to bed. I just was trying to be as fair as possible in the media aspect, but I did speak with Dan Watson after this game, and he was not happy. As we kind of mentioned before, he didn't really mince his words in this one. Extremely disappointed in the performance, but echoed that it was scheduling. This schedule on this team has been brutal. We talk about brutal schedules in the ECHL. The Griffins have had one of the toughest travel schedules and game schedules I think I've ever seen them have at the beginning of the season before the Christmas break and this season. And it really showed in this game. They were gassed, man.
I want to ask you, what's worse? What the Griffins just went through or what the Walleye are about to go through?
It's probably equal, honestly.
Because
the Walleye are about to go through a gauntlet.
4-5 coming out of the break and 9-18.
Yeah, with travel.
Right.
It's brutal, but again,
welcome to the minor leagues.
If you ask any coach or any player, there's no excuse for it. And there wasn't really an excuse for the performance that the Griffins put out there. The other word that could be used besides exhausted was just kind of embarrassing. This is not how you want to lose a game to the team right behind you in the division. Well, at the time, Chicago had passed them in the division. Actually, at this point, Chicago and Milwaukee were tied. That's a discussion for another time. But it's an embarrassing game. They just didn't look like themselves. There's one goal I can think of specifically where I knew at this point in the game, this game was over, and it was Milwaukee's second goal of the game. It was a shorthanded goal, and the back check from two of the Griffins players was the slowest. They just gave up. They honestly gave up. Ville Husso hung out to dry at that point, and that's where I knew this game was gone. The boys were done. The give a shit meter was at the lowest possible it could be for the Griffins in this one. And what sucked is because you saw a lot of casual fans seeing Ville Husso get lit up for 6, and they're like, there he is, and I'm like, no, he was hung out to dry probably on 5 of these 6 goals. He had a 2-on-0 at one point that got past him, obviously. That shorthanded goal was a breakaway. It was Milwaukee ran over Grand Rapids, and you got to remember going into this game, Milwaukee had lost every game to the Griffins so far this season going into this one. So there was definitely extra motivation on their side of the ice. Plus, they were relaxed. They were already comfortable in their environment, and they just took advantage of everything that the Griffins had out there. The only positive note for the Griffins is they scored a power play goal. This was a game where you saw the penalty kill go for 2 for 4, which we normally don't talk about anything negative with the penalty kill, and they were awful in this game. But at the same time, you're tired. So we'll move on from that game. That's all you can say about that one. Exhaustion. And you go into Sunday going, all right, it's just one day off in between. How much of a difference can that make? And it made a huge difference. The boys had a great start in this one, a lot of pep in their step. 3 minutes into the game, Dom Shine scored his 7th of the season on a goal where he probably had 7 chances to make that same goal against Milwaukee. When I said the give a shit meter was at its lowest it could be, it was only a little bit high because Dom Shine was probably the only player who was outplaying every player on the ice Friday night. He was the player of the game on the Grand Rapids side of the puck, even though they lost 6-1. He was incredible in that game, definitely wearing his emotions on his sleeve that night. He was frustrated. He was just getting pissed off, and he was trying his best to get the team back in it. And you knew 3 minutes into this game, gets his 7th of the season, you're like, all right, this is going to be a little bit better of a game. He was flying. And then you go to a couple minutes later at the 8-minute mark, Elmer Soderblom rips one past Magnus Hellberg. An absolutely beautiful shot, a shot that we knew Elmer had in his arsenal, but he hasn't really used it much this season. But it was an absolute beauty. Shai William and Brogan Rafferty got the assist on that one. That was the only 2 Griffins goals there. Ritzkovian for Dallas gets 2 here, 1 in the second, 1 in the third. This kid's unbelievable. That's his 12th goal of the season. He's got a ridiculous amount of points. He's a fantastic player. Dallas is set up so well with prospects. We'll talk about that more after this game. It's ridiculous. And then the game goes to overtime. and RT Hurry, I think is his name. It's really weird on paper, but he gets the game winner there in overtime on the power play because Dom Shine ended up taking a double minor for high sticking at the 18-minute 42-second mark of the third period, right after Texas had tied the game as well. So the Griffins dropped this one in OT, a disappointing one that they thought they should have had based on the conversations post-game there. Just another frustrating one. The only positive out of the game was seeing positives, I should say. Elmer getting his second of the season. Maybe that's a spark that he needed right before the break to come back with some more confidence. Obviously, Dom Shine played well. Sebastian Cosa, not his best game, but not his worst game. But the biggest positive was the Gridiron Griffins jerseys. Those were an absolute hit with the fans. That's the most expensive jersey auction I've seen in a couple years now for Grand Rapids. I don't think a single one went under $700. And you're talking guys that haven't even laced up the skates for this team this year, costing that much. Those jerseys were sick. For those that don't know, they looked like the Lions black and blue jerseys, the Motor City Muscle jerseys. And then the Griffins went all black with the equipment, black shorts, black gloves, black helmets. Sebastian Cosa, all black pads, a matte black mask with like some highlighted designs of the shield and the Red Wings logo, and then a griffin on the front with red eyes on it. It looked mean. And I'm sitting here writing down questions, towards the end of the game, thinking, oh, it's about 3 minutes left. They should be able to close this out. And of course, Texas ruined that for me. All these positive questions about the gear and all that stuff, and I didn't get to ask half of them, which was unfortunate because the vibes were immediately dead after Texas ended up winning this one. But it was a cool setup. I hope they do stuff like that more. I know now that the Griffins have revealed that they have all the black gear, we've known about it for a couple weeks now, but now that they've revealed that, we know there's a few more specialty jerseys down the line that are black as well. So I'm assuming they'll bring back the all black look for those too, which is super exciting. And who knows, maybe when they flip to wearing black jerseys at home the second half of the season after the All-Star break, maybe we'll see that look a lot more too. But it looked mean on the ice.
Yeah, I like the football jerseys. They were neat.
They were sick. I wanted one so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at them, but, there's a couple others down here that I have to save double the amount of money to maybe consider buying.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I mean, I watched the end of this one. It was a tough loss. Obviously, you're up 2-0. That's a game you want to win. Dallas Stars, another gem, draft pick, prospect they got to add that to Logan.
They got like 4 on this team still. It's insane.
And Logan Stankoven's in the NHL, Wyatt Johnson's in the NHL. Like all these guys, like they're just good at drafting, man. They got an eye for talent. They know how to find it, and not just find it in the first round. Like they've shown the ability to go out in the mid rounds and find players, and that's what it takes. And ultimately, too, like, it is tough to lose a game that way. Obviously, after Friday, you knew they were going to come back wanting to play a lot better, and they did in the first period. I mean, did. The Elmer shot was unreal. He's starting to kind of find it a little bit here offensively, so that could be a sign of positive things for the second half. Dominic Shine's just continuing to be that guy that I think, like Brandon said for years, is probably the most underrated player in the organization.
Detroit, give him a shot. Jesus. Give him a shot.
Cosa looked like the guy from the Mighty Ducks for the Hawks, that goaltender. Said that to Brandon.
I did ask him about that too.
Those are kind of my thoughts, really. I didn't, it's just tough. I was glad to see they had a lot more, as you say, give a shit than what they had Friday night. It's amazing what a little rest can do for you. Because they didn't play Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, right? They didn't play.
The Griffins did not play Saturday. Texas played Saturday in Milwaukee and shut them out. Well, which was crazy.
Texas is tough. I think everybody knew that. I mean, they aren't at the top of the standings, but like they're tough. Like they got a good group of players. But as a whole, I mean, that's all I really have on that game, and I don't have anything for Friday. Like
that's fine. I didn't expect you.
I was at the tank Friday.
Exactly. I said I wanted to hit on the Dallas Stars prospects that they have, and there's 2 standouts that have to be talked about. Obviously, Justin Rizkovian, he had the 2 goals in Sunday's game. He played really well when the Griffins were in Texas as well last week. He's 26 points in 27 games right now, 12 goals, 14 assists. He's just an absolutely lethal shot out there. And he's always in the right place at the right time. At least when they were playing us, he was. He's ridiculous. You're always seeing number 9 somewhere out there close to the net chasing that puck down. And I was very impressed with him. Like, I always try to peel back the fan mentality because I'm a big fan of the Grand Rapids Griffins, obviously, but I'm looking at the hockey players themselves and I'm like, dude, this kid's unreal. But then you got another guy, Antonio Stranges, out there for Dallas as well. He's got 28 points in 25 games, 11 goals, 17 assists. Another guy who was all over the score sheet in these 3 games between the Griffins and the Texas Stars. He's a 4th round draft pick out of the 2020 draft for Dallas, and looks like it's another stud they have. And like you said, Logan Stankoven's not on this team anymore. A bunch of other guys have already graduated, and they've got 2 guys right here that could easily graduate. Plus, they still have a defenseman in Kyle Capobianco, who was a 2015 third round draft pick for the Arizona Coyotes. He's kind of bounced his way around the American League over the past few years. But if you didn't look at the stat sheet, I wouldn't be able to tell you who was a defenseman. Like, this kid was always up in the play, and he's got 21 points now in 25 games this season, 2 goals, 12 or 19 assists. Is absolutely lethal player out there. And just again, I could talk about 5 more guys in this team, honestly, when you're looking at Dallas's potential players. The way the Dallas Stars have drafted over these past few years and looking at the pieces that are actually like panning out, it's insane.
Well, it's draft and develop. It's what Detroit's doing. It's draft and develop. Like, that's how you build good teams. Look, this isn't the 90s and early 2000s to where you could go out and buy Brett Hall, get Dominik Hasek via trade. You know, like, there was no cap. Like,
yeah.
In order to be a good team and a good organization, you have to draft well. You have to have depth. You have to develop that depth into good players. And little by little, you start to sprinkle them into your lineup. Fortunately for Dallas, like, they're a really good team to begin with, and they found some gems here to keep that transition to their next core fluid. Like,
yeah,
there's no other way around it. Like, it's kind of what Detroit's doing, but at a much different pace because they're in the playoffs every year. But again, like, they had that high-end talent that is still there. Like, if you really wanted to compare this is what Detroit needed to happen when it kind of started to, but it didn't take that next step, like with Nyquist and Tatar and those guys. When they started to filter in, you're kind of like, oh, this is the next group, and it turned out that wasn't the case. I don't know if that's going to happen with Dallas, but like, they've shown, like, okay, we're a cap team, but we're going to find some gems that can come up and play on entry-level contracts that can provide adequate play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to watch, man. They're just consistently a good team, and Dallas is going to be a good team for a long time, it looks like, too. So.
Magnus Hellberg, too, man. Like,
dude.
I mean, setup king of the world. Like, it's not as cool as I thought it would be, like with Dallas.
It's cool
like,
in person, though, honestly. It looks really good.
I bet it does. Like,
yeah.
I said to my dad, I'm like, oh, they're playing the setup king of the world, like when they were in Texas. And he's like, who's that? And I was like, Magnus Hellberg. And I was like, he's the dude that had the wings up the pad. And then in Pittsburgh, like, he had like the dashes, but they were like penguin fins. And then he had the Ottawa one and the Kraken one. Yeah, that was just setup king of the world. So, I mean, I know we're not a Texas Stars podcast, but you got to give that guy some flowers.
You give that guy flowers anytime you can. Honestly, one of the nicest guys I've ever talked to. He's a genuinely nice human being who just loves the game and loves his setups. Like, he puts a lot of thought into that stuff and has fun with it. And as a fan, you always have to appreciate that. And again, you know, I've talked to other media representatives too, and he's on it when he was here in Grand Rapids last year or 2 years ago, whatever that was. Just one of the nicest guys. Honestly, just a super nice guy to talk to after the games, even after a tough loss. He always had a good attitude. So I give him a lot of credit whenever I can. And it is always fun seeing him pop back in. I didn't anticipate to see him play all 3 games over this last week the Texas Stars played versus the Griffins. Remy Poirier is their backup goaltender, and he's a guy who's always had the Griffins number, so I thought we'd see a little more of him. But we saw Magnus in all 3 games, so that was pretty interesting. But I want to shift gears here and just kind of talk about what the AHL Central Division looks like now at the holiday break here, coming out of the holiday break. And it's not what you would anticipate, or not at least what we anticipated when we did our season preview episode with Andrew Rinaldi, where we kind of tried to predict where the rankings would be at the end of the season. Obviously, we said the Griffins would be at the top of the Central Division, and they still are. They still have a 6-point lead over second place. 29 games played. They have 37 points. They're at 17 wins, 9 losses, 3 overtime losses. Still having a fantastic season. Still a goal differential of 84 goals scored and 77 against. And then you go behind them, and the Central Division has gotten wild. And that doesn't mean the Iowa Wild are in there. They are not. But at the same time, the Central Division, if you've listened to this podcast since it started, has always been a tight, crazy division to watch, especially when it gets closer to the playoffs, and it's shaping up to look that way already again this season. Second place in the Central, the Texas Stars. 27 games played, 15 wins, 11 losses, 1 overtime loss, and at 31 points. And then there's a tie for third between Milwaukee, who's sitting in fourth because of the way the tiebreaker breaks down. But in third place, the Chicago Wolves, which 5 to 7 episodes ago, we were like, they suck. Well, in their past 10 games, they're 8-1-1. Spencer Martin is playing Patrick Waugh levels of goaltending right now for them. And honestly, as a team, they've kind of figured out how to work with what Carolina has given them. And if you follow the drama between Carolina and the Chicago Wolves over the past few years, it's been pure entertainment from the outside, but looks like a train wreck as well. Well, the Chicago team is starting to figure it out, and they might honestly be the second best team in this division at this point. We kind of saw it when the Griffins did that 3-3 against them. Chicago pretty much had their number the whole weekend, except for that Saturday game that we had the overtime winner with. But Chicago has really improved since that time the Griffins beat them on a Friday night wearing the military jerseys, like 5-1 or something like that. They blew them out of the water in that game. Shoot, one of the goalies was basically in the Grand River at that point because William Lagesson had walked him that far. And that's not the case with the Wolves anymore. It's not looking at the schedule when you see them pop up. It's not an easy win. They have definitely made a name for themselves. And like I said, 4th place, Milwaukee. 5th place, the shocker of the season so far for me is the Rockford Ice Hogs. 27 games played, 11 wins, 12 losses, 3 overtime losses, 5-3-1-1 in their last 10. Negative goal differential. Not what I saw coming out of this team, honestly. You'd think with the way the Blackhawks are looking right now, you think this team might be kind of stacked with some prospects that are panning out and maybe giving them some hope for the future, and it's not looking like it. You know, we're not a podcast of those teams, so I can't give you in-depth insight. I can only go based on stats, but at the same time, I thought Rockford was a top 3 team in this division currently, and sitting 5th is absolutely wild to me. And then to round out the division, Iowa in 6th, Manitoba in 7th, and last place in the division. 7 wins, 17 losses, and 1 shootout loss, which we had Manitoba in the top 5 going into the season. They have underperformed and underdelivered in a big, big way. 1-8-0-1 in their last 10. It is rough if you're up there in Manitoba right now.
So I got a few points here, just on a couple of the teams, not everybody as a whole. Obviously, Texas, we just talked about Texas gave them their flowers, so that's what it is. Chicago, look, it just shows you what 2 good weeks can do for you. 2-3 good weeks, and you're right back in it. That's pretty much my point there. Yeah, Spencer.
Was that a message to Red Wings fans?
I mean, it could be. Christ, if you go on an 8-1-1 run, that's 16 points, and all of a sudden you're right there. Like, just saying. It just takes one hot run to get you back into it. The big thing I've noticed with Milwaukee, they're still steady. They're still a steady team. Obviously, they've had some departures along the way. A couple guys still there. Like, you think of Askarov being gone. That alone could take you from being a top team into the middle of the pack just off goaltending, but you lose a player like that. Ask the Barracuda what they think of him, and they're going to tell you he's the gift of God. But
yeah.
Chicago, or not Chicago, I get Chicago and Rockford mixed up, but
Everyone does.
Rockford, look, it's tough. They lose their AHL coach to the NHL. They've had a couple NHL debuts in the last few weeks too, so they're kind of pulling guys from Rockford at the same time. That can be tough on an American League team from what little bit I've come to understand of the American League. You see it everywhere. I mean, you only have so many guys, so when guys start getting called up and you got to sign guys to ATOs, PTOs, stuff like that, it's tough. It just makes it tough. Manitoba, look, the Jets are rolling. I mean, that fan base, they're in the same city, they're in the same building, so they probably don't care because the Jets are so good. And Iowa's Iowa, just a full-on basic train wreck, basically. But Minnesota's doing well, so they're probably happy.
Yeah, I would assume they're happy in that sense, but the one that still shocks me is Manitoba, man. We saw what they could potentially be doing, and obviously Winnipeg's off to one of the best seasons ever for them. Let's be real. So honestly, there's not much focus in their AHL team. They want guys that are playing well to be with Winnipeg and doing their thing. I don't know if Brad Lambert's with Winnipeg right now. That was the one piece that we were like, if he's with Manitoba, they'll be good. If he's not, they'll be bad. I couldn't tell you if he is. I'd have to take a second look. Goaltending for them just hasn't been kind of what we expected. We saw Thomas Milic come in last season and play really well for them out of the ECHL, and ECHL All-Star goaltender comes in, gets his shot, kind of with the Kosa treatment, honestly. We kind of just assumed this was Winnipeg's Sebastian Kosa, and he's come in 12 games. He's got a 3.71 goals against and a .862 save percentage right now. He's not living up to what we thought he'd do last season, and then they got Kaapo Kakkonen as their other goalie as well, which that name has made his way around the league a few times now. And he's got worse numbers than Milic does. So I don't know. It's interesting, man. The Rockford piece, I did forget about the coaching change, honestly, when I was talking about them and wondering why they're like this. I forgot about the coaching change, and that is definitely a big piece there. And they're not getting steady goaltending either. Drew Comesso was kind of the next goalie for the Blackhawks. And
he got called up too.
He did, and he's not looking good since the call up. And Mitchell Weeks, honestly, has been getting a few more games than him, and he's a rookie. He's trying to find his way in this league too. So everything's a little unstable when you're at that end. But when I say the Central Division's close, guys, 7 points separate first and fourth. That's how crazy this division. 11 points separate the last playoff spot and first. That's how tight the Central Division is, and it's always like this. It's insane. This division is the most fun to watch when it comes to playoff time. Now, remember, it's the AHL. It feels like everybody makes the playoffs. The top 5 teams in this division make the playoffs. But at the same time, a bad streak, you fall off the schneid a little bit, man. You can drop quickly in this. And if you get on a streak, you can move up very quick in this division. So it's going to be fun to watch as the season unfolds here. And speaking of, playoffs and all that stuff, the holiday, is it really the halfway point of the season? Some people say yes, some people say no. But I just want to get your perspective.
No, but
exactly. But we're at that holiday break. Coming out of it, what do you expect from the Grand Rapids Griffins as we go on this season?
Younger guys to continue to take that next step. Your Nates. Can Elmer get on a hot streak? I'll say it. Can Coast kind of regain what he had before the call-up? Now, some of that's the team as a whole in the last 2 weeks, but actually that's largely a part of it.
It's a major part of it.
Trying to think, Wally, can he take that next step? Bouillon, can he continue to improve? Nate, Ammo, when he gets back, what's Carter Mazer going to look like when he comes back? He's missed a lot of games. So what's he going to look like when he returns? That's really my biggest thing is for the kids to continue to develop. How many games is Husso going to play? How many games is Campbell going to play? That's kind of those are my big questions kind of moving forward, what I'd like to see. I thought the first half, they got off to a much better start this year.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, go through a couple weeks where it's tough, right? You can afford to have that. Last year here, Toledo got out to a damn near 20-point lead, and people were wanting the coach fired at a 10 when they dropped from 15 and a half, 20 points up to 10.
Oh,
which was
God.
Crazy.
Love you, Walleye fans.
And then there's GR that started slow last year and found it in the second half. So if they can have a second half like they had last year, holy Christ, this team could skyrocket to, like some serious contention level for playoff time. I think the big thing I'd like to see is have them get the first round bye.
That would be huge. That would be huge, especially with the way the schedule is written. That could be massive for this team.
I'm going to throw... Now, again, this is what to expect, possibly, I guess we're kind of going into. So,
yeah.
If Skellefteå gets bounced, do we see MBN and ASP?
100%. I would assume that you would. And based off of ASP's performance today in World Juniors, Skellefteå get bounced, please. I want them to play. I want them to play the playoff games, right? Those are important for a player's development. But at the same time, those two kids could be a huge difference maker in the AHL playoffs. And would I rather them get AHL playoff experience over SHL playoff experience? I don't know. That's a better question for some of our overseas friends of the show that pay attention to
or prospect friends.
Yeah, right. Mr. Red Wings prospects himself over there. That's probably a better question for them. But at the same time, the possibility, I peel it back and think about this. If that happens, and also at the same time, if Kamloops doesn't make the playoffs in the WHL, Emmett Finney's probably coming to Grand Rapids. Let's be real. And if you haven't paid attention to what Emmett Finney's been doing this season, Emmett Finney is on an absolute freaking tear in the WHL. He's having the most under the radar best season I think I've seen a player have. It's absolutely stupid.
Borderline shocking Canada left him off the freaking World Junior roster, in my opinion.
Borderline? No, it is shocking that they left him off the roster.
They left a lot of Michael Misa's not even on their roster this year.
Emmett Finney has 46 points in 29 games, 19 goals, 27 assists.
On, I believe, a 12th or 13th place Kamloops team?
I can tell you that exactly here. Western Conference, 9th place in the Western Conference.
So they're not very good, is what I'm saying.
So I'm assuming he's a guy, the junior scene is crazy, right? You see crazy trades happen before the playoffs. We saw it last year with Nate Danielson going from Brandon to Portland. I'm assuming Emmett Finney is moved before playoffs happen, even though he is the captain of the Kamloops Blazers. I'm assuming we see him moved.
Well, Nate was the captain of Brandon and got moved. So
exactly, especially if Detroit has any say in it, they're going to be like, get him to a playoff contender, please. Again, this is a late round draft pick here that's really, really shocking a lot of people and playing extremely well. I mean, to have that many points on a bad team. I mean, next closest to him is at 37 points there. He's almost got a 10-point gap to his line mate, which is just insane. But I was critical of Emmett Finney in the couple of games he played in Grand Rapids last year, and I knew he wasn't ready. We kind of thought maybe we'd see him go to Toledo, and I think that would have been a nice bump for him there. But to see him go back to juniors and perform like this shows there's something there with this prospect. Is it going to be game-changing for the Detroit Red Wings? Probably not, but at the same time, who knows? The fact that we could get MBN, ASP, and Emmett Finney back to Grand Rapids before the playoffs happen is a stat line that should make a lot of fans that pay attention to this show really excited for what our playoff coverage will look like. Because I'm assuming we'll run it the same as last year and literally do a recording after every playoff game, and those are usually unhinged and chaotic, and they're a lot of fun. I can't wait to get back to that, even though they're a lot of work. But at the same time, we're potentially going to be covering a team that's got Nate Danielson, ASP, MBN, Emmett Finney, Amadeus Lombardi, Carter Mazer, Sebastian Kosa, William Wallander, all heading into the playoffs in the American League.
William.
Oh yeah, Shai Bulliam too, who's been absolutely phenomenal this year. I could dedicate
Vero.
20 minutes to him. Vero, who knows?
How many? This is part of the process. You draft these
This is
guys,
the fun part of the process for us.
Yeah, well,
this is the really fun part of the process for us. That's when views skyrocket, when you start name dropping prospects like that. But at the same time, the thought of that is super exciting, and what the Griffins could potentially do this year, I guess. The way I'll wrap up this part of this segment here is, do I still believe that the Grand Rapids Griffins are a Calder Cup contender? Yes, 1000% yes. The possibility of this team winning a championship this year is super high. It is not a thing that is talked about in the room. To our knowledge, it's not a thing that's talked about amongst the players. They take it the game by game mentality as well. But at the same time, this team is got the right coaches in place, the right players in place, especially when you think about getting guys back like Amadeus Lombardi and Carter Mesa there, which potentially Ammo is maybe 8 more games than we see him back is the number that we see floating around now. And Bob Kaiser mentioned it in the Red Wings broadcast. Also, shout out to him for getting the opportunity to be on TV for the Red Wings broadcast. That was so cool to come home, turn on the game, and see. I loved that for him. Can't wait to talk to him about that next time I see him at Van Andel. But this team could win the Calder Cup this year. They are amongst one of the best, if not the best teams in the American League. And this second half of the season post-holiday break is going to be a lot of fun if you're a Red Wings fan, because there's not much to cheer about at that end. Obviously, we're hoping to see things maybe spark with a new coach, but if you're a fan of that team, it's time to start paying attention to the Grand Rapids Griffins maybe a little more. Trust me, for your mental health, it'll be a lot more fun.
Pending call-ups, too, because you never know.
Sure, but at the same time, Grand Rapids is deep, man. I mean, look, they've still been able to perform without 2 of their best players arguably on the roster. And one of them has been out since game 3 of the season.
Right.
Which is insane. So for them to be able to do what they've done with the schedule that they've had to deal with, if you're a Wings fan, pay attention to this Griffins team. Get the Flow Sports subscription for the last couple months of the season. It's worth it. You can watch the Walleye, you can watch the SHL, and you can watch these Grand Rapids Griffins go do something potentially very special. And I'm a firm believer that we'll be covering this team into a deep playoff run this year. So I hope you fans are ready. I hope we're ready. Good Lord. But at the same time, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Do you still believe that they're a Calder Cup contender?
Yeah, I know. There's no reason for them not to be. Look, they're in first place at Christmas. Like, still a long way to go. I mean, anything can happen again. Like, look, I'll say it. Like, guys, like you're only 3-4 injuries away from a derailed season potentially. It's just a reality of the situation. But given the trajectory they're on, how they've been playing as a whole, yeah, I mean, they got the right amount of. They got a good blend of veterans with a good amount of kids, and that's generally kind of what it takes. So
that's usually the recipe for success for a Calder Cup.
It's just like you would know more than me. Like, it's just kind of what I've seen, the bits and pieces of the season that I've got to watch. Some nights they look great. Some nights, like Friday, it's tough. But that's every team goes through that. So
yep, it's how you come out of those stretches.
Oh yeah,
defines the team. And I'm really excited for them to get back in action this week. Like I said, they played Cleveland in Cleveland on Saturday to come out of the holiday break. I think it's Saturday. Maybe check myself.
It's Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. Because we talked about potentially doing that 3-3 craziness this weekend. I'm glad I didn't commit to that. And then, they come back home and play Cleveland again on New Year's Eve here in Grand Rapids for the classic New Year's Eve game. Unfortunately, I won't be there. It's one of the home games I will miss this year. So historically, if I miss a game, it's usually either a really bad game or it's like one of the most fun games ever. Last year when they had Cleveland in town for New Year's Eve, they blew the doors down on them, and it was an absolutely insane game to watch. But
the last time Cleveland was in town, it was a hell of a game.
And Cleveland's still a very good team. They're still third in a very crazy North Division. I say the Central Division's crazy. The North Division, God, you got Laval leading the division at 38 points. Rochester, Cleveland, Toronto, all tied at 37 points for the next 3 spots. It's a fun division as well. Cleveland's a fun team to play. I asked Dan Watson, too. Unfortunately, he didn't pick up on the question when I was asking. I think there was some frustration there. But I asked him, hey, the schedule actually worked out in your favor. You get to go home for Christmas, be with your family in Ohio, and play your first game in Ohio. Like, the schedule gods were in his favor for once to be close to home around the holidays. So hopefully he got to enjoy that. And I hope the rest of the team, I know some guys were staying in GR, some guys were going home to see family. I hope everyone got the relaxing time they needed to come back and have some fun. Post-holiday break last year for this Griffins team was a hell of a lot of fun to watch. It's where the season really took a turn, but that was after a rough start. If they can mimic that somehow after this great start, this team will be a wagon.
100% agree. It's just a matter of staying healthy, continuing to do things the right way, your kids taking the next steps, and your veterans helping them along the way.
We hope that everyone joins us for the ride because it's going to be a fun one. And we hope you enjoy the coverage that we're going to bring you guys for it. It's going to be a ton of fun. I know as we go into the new year, Travis and I have talked a lot about some fun stuff that we want to do for the show, some fun content and things like that. So we're excited to bring that. The last thing I want to hit on today to wrap up this episode, again, it's kind of been all over the place. So if you stuck around this long, appreciate it. Thank you. But we got to talk about Axel Sandin Pellikka, dude. A hat trick in the first game of the World Juniors today and an assist on top of that as well. Like, dude shows up in these tournaments. Obviously, he showed up already. What he's going to potentially be the best player on the defensive side of the puck in the SHL this year, right? He's still at the top of the league in that aspect.
Yeah, and he's going to miss a couple weeks for the World Juniors.
And still will probably finish near the top of all defensemen in that league. Like, this kid is a great player. Now, I know we've talked about this player before, and I want to echo this one thing. Do I think he's the savior of the franchise? Do I think he's Cale Makar? No, he's not. We'll back the truck up a little bit there. Do I think he has the potential to be a star in the NHL? Yeah, 100%. But will he be the savior of this Red Wings franchise? I don't think so. I think he's going to be a really good player back there. I know, Travis, you have a player comparison for him, and that's...
I see him more similar to, like, Adam Fox. To a point. Look, I'm not going to throw out future Hall of Famers. I'm not going to throw out Hall of Famers. I'm going to try to dial the tone back a little bit. See a guy that's very offensively gifted, can play in his own end well. I mean, there's a few things with this. I'm going to say this. He's my favorite prospect that's not a goaltender.
That's fair.
There's something about being able to score from distance that few can do, but make it look so effortless.
Yeah.
His one goal today, now granted, it probably doesn't go in on an NHL goaltender, but the fact that he kind of walked the line and then just nonchalantly threw the puck at the net and it went in, like, to score from distance is a very crucial thing. And another thing he does very well is gets pucks through, like, and like, huge credit. I follow his Twitter page, Red Wings Prospects. I was talking to him about him tonight. That's an element that Detroit doesn't really have right now. He pointed out a few things too, that, like, he'd love to see him on, like, the flank for the one-timer, because he's really good at that. I mean, you've seen it today.
Ridiculous.
The one goal he scored today, it was like a bouncing puck that he turned into a knuckle puck, basic one-timer.
Is that the one he went bar down on?
No, that was a different goal.
Oh, God.
He only scored 3 of them today.
Only.
But, like, look, I've said it. I think I've told a few people, like I've said, like, okay, you got a couple guys in Detroit now, Seider, Evanson. I was like, wait till this other guy comes, because he's going to be the spark offensively that kind of they don't have. He's Shane Gostisbehere, but can play a little bit better defensively, and also is a shot threat and a pass threat to a point. The biggest thing is he's still good defensively, and what he's doing in the SHL is almost unheard of to a point. Like,
yeah. It's ridiculous.
Really, he's really good last year, and this year he's overage by draft standard.
Sure.
If he was in juniors, he'd be declared an overager. To do it at a professional level is what really impresses me. And, like, you see him come to the World Juniors, and, like, people are like, well, he kind of should dominate. And it's like, well, yes and no. I mean, he's still a defenseman. Like, it's still hard to put up points as a defenseman.
100%.
So I think the biggest thing, like, the fact that he does it so well in the SHL and then it translates so well back to kids at his own age is what is impressive. And then the shot that you said he went bar down today, like,
oh, God.
that was
disgusting.
That was almost otherworldly. Like, you see that and you're like, okay, the kid can really shoot the puck. Like,
yeah.
And he's not a very big guy, but I think the biggest thing too is here's something that Detroit, like, you've seen it with Moritz Seider. He can move the puck initially, like that first pass in your own end. When Pellikka picks the puck up and, like, it just looks so effortless to him. Like he wants the puck. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna go crazy on comps. There's a few you could throw out there. I mean, I don't really know that I love the Adam Fox one, but it could be like I can see it.
And what's wrong with having an Adam Fox on the Red Wings, right? Like that's great.
And the realistic, like the great thing about it too is he's not gonna have to come into Detroit and play first pair minutes. Like that's what's gonna help this kid a lot. He's gonna come in, probably be your second pair right D. They got to find the right kind of guy for him. Like, look, I'll say this. I think Jacob Chikrin would have been perfect on his left side.
Why do you think that? Like, what are you looking for on the other side for him?
Well, again, so like you've seen it with Sider. Like Sider struggled until he had Jake Wallman because nobody could move the fucking puck. Like, excuse my French, but that's just the reality. Like Sider's rookie year, there wasn't a guy with him that could move the puck. There just was nobody. And now that he's got Simon can move the puck around. Like, you know, he's a very, you know, he's a talented player. You got to have a partner that, especially with a guy like that can jump up into the play and play so well offensively, that can stay at home. It's almost like what they tried to do with Ben Sherratt. It just didn't work because Sider was just so good and so fast, and like Sherratt, it just didn't work. Like I seen what they were trying to do, but I think they just needed somebody a little more athletic with him. It's kind of the McDavid factor, like I said earlier. Like, look at how long the Oilers struggled to find guys to play in the wing with him. Like sometimes elite players, it's tough to find a partner for them. Another guy like I sit and think of, like I think he already got an extension, but Gavrikov with the Kings was in Columbus for a long time. I feel like he would have been a good piece. And, you know, there's not a ton of, like, great options, I would say. Like, this is where everybody's going to get pissed off because they traded Jake Wallman. But, like, you know what? It's done and it's over with. You can't go back. I'm sorry to ramble, but, like, this is where you could kind of trade for that lefty. Like, you need a lefty. I wouldn't... Like some people would say, well, Wally or Bouillon down the road. Down the road, yes. I think if you brought up Wally next year, he's probably third pair max. Or 2-0, but 2-0 is just going to be underneath Pelika, most likely.
Correct.
So...
Which, God, that's some lethal shots there on that side.
You know, it's just one of them things. You have to pair these guys up with guys that can play but are also responsible. It's basically in a nutshell. And I just rambled on for probably 5 minutes about it, but it's fine.
It's okay. That's what a podcast is for, right? But I guess the last question I'll ask about Axel Sandy and Pelika to you, and I think it's the $1 million question if you're a Griffins fan, is does he skip Grand Rapids outside of a return or where he gets sent here this year after the SHL playoffs are done? Next season, does he skip and go straight to Detroit, or does he get half a season, if not a full season, to play on North American ice here in GR? You see the Moritz Seider treatment.
He's skipping.
You think so?
Yeah. He won't be in it. He won't. Only way that I think he puts a Griffins uniform on myself is Skellefteå gets bounced early. He comes to Detroit. They play until the end of the season. He comes to GR for the playoffs. If they want him to play that much hockey.
I disagree.
Unless he comes here and they just send him straight to GR, which is a possibility, but I just don't see it. I think he's...
So here's my take on it. And this is not like a fan. I want to see him play here and have that selfish thought. Of course I want that, right? But defensemen take longer, right? The strategy with defenseman development is it's got to be, it's almost like the approach with goalies, right? It's not forwards. You can't just call them up and they're going to go play like Marco Kasper, right? Defensemen take time. The year that Mo Seider spent in Grand Rapids, I think, was probably one of the most crucial years of his development. You look at Simon Edvinsson, who had extra time even getting in Grand Rapids over the time Moritz Seider had, and look what it's done for him. I'm not saying ASP couldn't make that jump and be that guy, because he's going to be able to play probably at any level. Let's be real. But for the long-term development of that player, I think it makes sense to start him here. I think you get him comfortable at this level. I know he's playing against men over there, but that the discussion about the ice size is huge when you're talking defensemen, because when Mo Seider came to Grand Rapids, at least for the first half of the season, like, he was good, but he wasn't Moritz Seider good. Then that second half of the season, you saw him just become a complete standout over every other defenseman in the American League. Like, he figured his game out. He became the Mo that we know him as today as a player in that second half of a season. And we've talked a million times about what sending Simon Edvinsson back to Grand Rapids last season did for him. Was he ready at the beginning of the season to be in Detroit? No. By the time he got his first call up was when he was officially ready. And then he still came back and did more developing. And now look at him. Outside of being injured, he's a fantastic player. He's got a great future in the NHL because of that time we took with him here. So I don't know. I know the thought process will change because the coaching is changing. But if I'm stepping back, I'm making that decision to play him here. Whether I think he's ready for the NHL, yeah, he's ready. But does he have the most development possible before making that step? I don't think so, and I think that time could be extremely, extremely valuable.
So while you were going on, I pulled up.
My rants are a little shorter. Sorry.
That's all right. No, you're good. Moritz Seider, his career path to the NHL.
Yep.
DEL for 29 games, Grand Rapids for 49 games, SHL for 41 games, and then was a Red Wing. So 3 professional seasons, 1 on North American ice. Axel Sandin Pellikka would go SHL for 22 games, SHL for 39 games plus 14 playoff games, and then SHL for, I'm going to guess, probably around 50 games after you take out the World Juniors, probably close to 50. 3 years pro, 3 years pro. I get there's a year on American ice. I look at Detroit. He's probably better than Justin Hull at this point.
Well, okay, duh, but
I'm just saying, like, him being right-handed is going to help him a lot. That's the biggest thing. Like,
you're right, but I don't know.
I can see it both ways, and I don't completely disagree with you. I'm just saying, I think, look what they did when they brought Marco over. He played in the NHL. Like, that was straight out of the SHL.
Yeah?
Because Simon, I'd have to pull Simon up, but I'm almost certain with Simon, he didn't come over at the end of a season.
No, I don't believe so. The only defenseman I'm thinking that came over at end of the season over there was Wallander, who played a couple games.
Yeah, he didn't. So,
and I got hurt.
That was a little different situation to where with Marco, he had already played the whole year. Well, it kind of made sense. And they weren't very good that year either, which kind of helped that situation, but he got hurt.
I think the only thing I get scared about is I get scared of prospects making that jump. And I know every prospect is different, but I always just think back to the Elmer situation. It's the first thought that sticks in my head, where he goes in and he starts off hot and then he falls off and can't find his game again, and still struggling to find consistent game at this point. You know, I think Friday's game was the first time in the group chat I used Bambi on skates as a reference to Elmer again, and I haven't used that since the middle of last season, and I had to use it that night because that's what he was. The guy was falling down left and right. Like, he still hasn't found it fully there. So I just don't want to see that happen with a player of this caliber. And I think even if it's just half a season in GR, there is more value to that than half the season in Detroit and getting sent back down and having to work his way back up. Do I think he'll do that? Do I think there's a higher caliber player in there than Elmer? Yes, of course. But at the same time, that thought will always come to mind when I think of where should this prospect go when they get to North America. I'm always going to think about the Elmer situation, and that's not fair to every other player because they're not Elmer. Everyone's different, but it always scares me.
I definitely see your point. I think it's just a scale thing. I really do. Like, look, you can give it back to me when he goes to Grand Rapids, and that's fine. Like, I just think, like, and I think long term here, like, say he comes over, say the Wings got 9 games left. I'd burn a year. Just for.
Would you really?
I'd burn it.
That's bold.
Why? You get him to his second contract quicker on less games.
I guess that's fair.
You know, like, I'd burn it. I really would. Like, again, we talk about getting younger. League's getting younger. To tie this back into the beginning of the episode, like, there comes a point, like, look, I'm all for overdeveloping prospects and get it, but there comes a point when, like, you have a guy that's just clearly head and shoulders above everybody, and looking at that right side, Jeff Petrie probably not getting re-signed, and Justin Hull 1 year left.
Yeah, you're all right. That's fair. I see your side too. The thing,
I definitely see the Elmer thing, and it I get it. I really do. I just think there's too much skill.
yeah,
I really think he comes over, he plays in the NHL for whatever 5-6 games is left, 7, whatever's left. Could be more, could be less. They look at him and say, "Hey, how you doing? Like, could you go do a playoff run with the Griffins?" And he says, "Sure, I'd love to."
he's going to say yes.
To GR he goes. Like, and you could see the same treatment with MBN, although I think his path would be more straight to GR.
He'll be in GR next season.
I'm saying at the end of this year, like, say they both come over, like, ASP would definitely probably see games with the Wings. Like,
yeah, MBN will be straight Grand Rapids next season, 100%.
I think if they bring ASP over and they don't play him in the NHL, if you think Twitter was on fire before they fired Lalone, Twitter would probably melt and the circuit boards would crash, the internet would be broken, and the world would be on fire. And
that's very fair.
I don't know what else to say.
Here's the last piece I'll add on ASP, because we've gone on about this for probably 20 minutes. So if you've stuck around this long, again, thank you. But at the same time, I don't know if you saw what Ice Hockey Gifts had shared on Twitter this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, before their game, where they talked about how ASP had injured himself he's out for a month last season, and why, or how the injury happened. Did you see this?
Yeah, he's punched a wall.
Punched a wall after Sweden lost in the final last year, and then he broke his finger. Like, we talk about wanting guys that give a shit. ASP's going to be the give a shit guy. Like, we talk about the team missing that vibe, right? The Red Wings, not the Griffins. The Griffins have a vibe, and it's a fun vibe. But the Red Wings are missing that vibe. Everyone goes back to saying Jake Wallman. ASP's going to be a vibe when he gets to this team. He's going to be an energy guy.
He's a
guy that gives a shit like that. Like, I am really excited for this player overall. So wherever he lands, I'm going to be excited, but I have my reservations. But I think that's a perfect time to end this episode before we end up on another 20-minute rant, even though we probably owe the folks a longer one because we missed a couple there with the holiday. But at the same time, they only want to listen to us rant for so long. So at that point, we will wrap this episode up. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this one, and welcome back to the holiday break. We're excited to get back to a normal posting schedule here soon. I think going into the new year, we want to actually set what a normal posting schedule is so you know when to look for the episodes, so stay tuned for that. But outside of that, we got to thank our sponsors, as we always do after every episode. And those are DraftKings and Game Time, and of course the Hockey Podcast Network for being great partners of the show. But without our Patreon subscribers, the show would not be possible. We've got to thank each one of those guys for supporting the show, and those currently are John in Florida, Elaine, Grace, Griffin, Randy, Derek, Lori, Alan, and Michael. Derek, I know you reached out to a couple of us on some advice for Toledo, and you're going to a game down there, and we'll make sure to reach back out to you and give you the advice and the heads up for what you need to know. And Travis is super excited to hopefully, honestly, find Travis, meet him. He loves that stuff. So appreciate all those subscribers over there. Thank you guys again for making the show possible. We appreciate you. Everybody else, thank you as well. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Enjoy hockey returning. Enjoy the World Juniors. Enjoy all the hockey that's happening. This is a fun time of year for hockey overall, so enjoy it. And until we talk again, as always, go Griffins, go Walleye, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod, and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy, and Brandon at BrandonGR Hockey.